So as I'm walking in the circle, I'm just letting this circle extend out through around the whole world. And I'm just setting the intention that there's someone or some ones out there we're going to do a soul story for. And the dogs are going to help us, because I'm going to let them decide what it is that needs to come into the circle. It'll probably be primarily Sundance, because he's going to be on a leash, because I can't let them both go. So just join with me in that intention. As we begin our little walk. Okay, Sundance, I need you to help me to find some things to bring into the circle. Okay? Alright. Two. She seems to be leading the way. Okay. Okay. Come here, Sundance, come. Come here. Sundance. Come here. Okay, that's the one. That's what I wanted to know. So there's 5 things that we gathered. The first one I saw Sundance kind of move toward, but I didn't pick it up. And he went under the tree for this one, by the branch, walked near the rocks, and I needed him to go closer so I could see which rock, and he stepped on this one. And then when he laid down, this was right underneath him. And then Beauty, as you could see, had her paw on this and was chewing on it. This is the sacred center of the circle. And this is the heart rock that sits in the center. So as we place that in the center now, we're setting this all in motion. Trusting that what needs to come out of these things will. I haven't thought about them. So listen with the bottom of your feet. Listen to the wind. And let's see what speaks. As I look at these objects, the first thing I see in all of them actually is this shape. Which could be like an upside down triangle. Could also be an arrow head. The only other thing I noticed right offhand was, as I look at this rock, there's a face in it. It's like a face of eyes that are, and the mouth is like this, which is also in the shape of a kind of triangle. In fact, there are many triangles within the rock. Well, Sundance originally walked over to these and he kind of gestured, smelled toward them. And I didn't pick it up until after I'd picked everything else up. So let's assume that that's meaningful. That even though this was the first thing he indicated, it was the last thing that needed to be picked up. So let's kind of deal with it in that order that he's telling me, or the flow through him is telling me, the order in which we need to look at these things. So the first thing that he picked up, these are the they're not needles, but it's the juniper foliage, I guess you could say, that falls down underneath the tree. Turns kind of a dark charcoal, mixes with the soil, eventually becomes the soil beneath the tree. And often it will form a dark circle around the bottom of the tree. So as life regenerates itself, the wind blows off the needles that dry out and fall off the tree. The heat and the sun dries them out. The moisture returns into the air. And the elements return to the earth. And in that cycle is a circle. So this living thing of the juniper tree and its life, and in its cycle of life, lives within its own circle. And in fact, the visible circle is created by what we would call death. But that death invigorates the soil so other things can grow, and actually it prevents some things from growing so that they do not invade upon the juniper and take up all the water. So the juniper tree, in a way, its sacred circle, is a form of gentle protection. And it lives. It just lives. It takes in the sun, carries on photosynthesis, the green juniper berries grow. Berries also drop to the ground. And every year these drop. Throughout the year they drop. As the wind blows, the sun, the rain knocks them off. So through this whole movement of life, these drop off in the sacred circle. And what seems like death creates a sacred circle of life. So the next thing he picked up was this. This is part of a, it's also dead, so to speak. It's the same thing as this, but it's dying. So it's very brittle. This is not brittle, it really bends. You can see it bends. This doesn't bend, it already broke. So someone in this cycle of death, which in death we lose something. A tree loses something, doesn't think about it though. So in this cycle of loss, which is small deaths for us all, if they're properly cycled through us in allowing the emotions to move and all the forms of grief, the sacred circle stays in place. But if they're not allowed to move, and a lifetime of all these losses not being allowed to move, you harden. You harden, and because the cycle of life can't regenerate itself, it gets brittle. It's a form of protection. If I don't love anything, I won't lose anything. I'll keep it out. But now when you lose something, it snaps you. Every little loss just seems to break you. Over and over and over and over and over again. Because you forgot how, or were never taught how to let that loss fall to the ground of your being, your compassion, let it all move, and invigorate your sacred self and circle. so that you bring in new life. New life. I had to pick it up then. This is new life. The Sundance was telling us that this whole story is about new life. And this one is in its green, and this one is just beyond that. The yellow flowers of the child and innocence. As a child, we don't think about losing what we love. We just love. We love. We love. We love. So this green life grows out of what has returned to the soil. This green life grows up from the circle of you. But it can't. If you harden, if you get stuck in the story of your loss, maybe you blame somebody for what you lost. Maybe you lost your livelihood, your business, your home. And you harden into the warrior. But you become brittle and hard. And it's harder for life to grow up within you. And for you to share your beauty. The child's face, a child's face of hunger. The child that even before they could walk, were hungry. Hungry to be held, hungry to be fed, hungry to be seen, hungry for the presence of someone. As if they lay in the dark in their crib, alone, alone, alone. This is the infant child alone and hungry. Even as life was beginning what in a healthy, maturing infant child of love is withheld. And in that withhold, it is lost. So this person knows this loss that long ago. And that loss that long ago, and perhaps from even longer, perhaps from even a greater vastness. Perhaps this was the literal hunger of starvation in some other story. Starvation of their children and watching them die. because they didn't have enough food to give them. And in that story, and the point of this is that in that story and embracing all the elements of that story, there's a great agony. A great agony. This not only is the face of the child of themselves, it's the face of the children, their own children, in a story that they could not feed. And so for that loss, there is great anger, but helplessness, because the food didn't come, and the children died. And so, that is the agony of this face. Reminds me of a painting called The Scream. It's like the agony of a mother or father who doing everything they possibly could to find something to feed those children, and yet they die. This is a great story of pain. But the key here is to touch every movement of that pain. And this is indeed the arrow that would kill those who denied the food to their children, to their people. It'd be like the endless rage of a Geronimo. Just a different kind of slaughter. Rather than with guns, destroying all their food. Reminds me of the story of, in this area, that's how they rounded up all the Indians. By forcing them to keep moving away from the places that they gathered and hunted for food. Find them in the winter when they had to build fires. So they literally had to surrender in order to feed their children. But this is not a story to invoke hatred toward the enemy. The point of this story is because the enemy cannot save you. Your hatred, your hardness, your agony, your loss, the emotions, the great sadness, the great wailing, the great desire to just die. That's within you. These are movements within the circle of you that sit there as if above the soil, not able to return to the earth, to the sacred circle of you. And so life doesn't regenerate. And you carry this hungry ghost, that story, endlessly repeating it over and over again in many different forms, until it always just seems like somebody else is a way out of freedom, 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 growth, green. is by gathering all that you had to reject and living that story one way, over and over again, by blaming the enemy and being a victim, whether you are a victim as a warrior that fights or a victim who draws others into its story. And no matter what the story, the action of gathering your soul medicine is the same. Whatever hasn't moved in all these stories of your soul, to bring them into the circle. Breathe through them. Sink to the ground if they wish to push you there, so that you can rise up again effortlessly floating up. This is the key. Hidden deep, way down inside. You must love your own hunger. Which means let the hunger go everywhere. Literally, the hunger for survival, the hunger for love, the hunger for value. Let the pain around all of it move. And the rage. And the desolation. But don't believe what this thinks about anything. Be the circle. So let me now, in this moment, let me bring in all the hungry ghosts of the whole world. This circle is big enough for them all. And bring them in here. Let whatever it is you think you need, let it come into this circle. Let the breath of the wind move through it. The radiance of the sun. And the earth. And let it recycle to create your sacred circle. So that life and your childlike ability to, without a thought of losing anything, flower in